And welcome to the Talk Shop Candidate Awareness Tour 2024. This edition brought to you by the UPS Store, 514 Grand Avenue in historic downtown Laramie, and the good folks at H&R Block, Martindale's Western Store, and Perkins Restaurant and Bakery. Those good folks, along with Wholesale Fireworks, 1348 U.S. Highway 287, bringing you this edition of the Candidate Awareness Tour. This morning's guest, Brett Glass. And Brett, thank you for joining us here in Studio 255, your second visit in the tour. And we do thank you for coming back. This follow-up, an August edition of my gosh, we had you in June. How's the campaign tour been?
Yes, well, Eric, the campaign tour has been very interesting. I've been knocking on a lot of doors all over town. People are telling me a lot of things that they want, things that they're happy with, things that they're not happy with, and I am learning a lot. The job of a council person is to listen, and I've been doing a lot of listening.
We always have the pleasure of informing our listeners. And as you have been campaigning since the May 31st filing period closed, are you an informed candidate yet?
I'd like to think that I am. I've listened to people harangue me for hours about specific issues that they care about. I've watched the opinion polls. I'm doing everything I can to become informed. And of course, as a 32-year resident myself, of all the candidates in my ward, I've lived here the longest. I already have an idea of what to ask and what's going on in town.
Well, we ask our listeners, are you an informed voter? The decisions you make at the polls or do not make by not voting have a direct effect on your life and the lives of others. Your voice is important, so we want you to vote early or on primary election day, August 20th. Definitely, we want that participation. And Brett Glass for City Council, Ward 2.
Yes.
Your area. What are some of the important things? Maybe what surprised you in your this is your second run for city council. Some would ask, why do you want to go up for this abuse? But I think your announcements are really clear. You're looking for transparency, integrity, foresight, quality of life. You do so as a business owner. What do you do to support an accountable government?
Well, the city council has a tendency sometimes to make decisions without consulting the public. The policy recommendations come from the city staff, from the bureaucracy, and unfortunately, council doesn't always query the public before they make their final decisions. They tend to rubber stamp what is brought before them with few changes. And the details matter. They really do need to listen to people. You don't want to call a city council member, as unfortunately I have in the past, and have them say, sorry, my mind is already made up. Or worse yet, I haven't read my packet yet and it's Monday night.
Supporting local business, also important to Albany County and the city of Laramie citizens. What's your perspective on supporting local business?
Well, all of the candidates have claimed to support local business, but they haven't really articulated policies that would do so. One of the things that we need to do is to eliminate red tape. It is incredibly difficult when you start a local business to do something basic like put up a sign on the front of your building. It's amazing what sort of hoops you have to jump through in order to do something as simple as that. And instead of facilitating that, the city makes it harder. We shouldn't thwart people who are trying to achieve their dreams. We should help them.
I find protecting our aquifer a buzz topic. Obviously, water is important to each and every one of us. Where do you stand on protecting the aquifer?
Well, if you take a look at the Aquifer Protection Plan that's already in place, and you also take a look at the environmental analyses of our water, which is very interesting. If you go to EWG, the Environmental Working Group, out on the web, and you look at their tap water survey that talks about what impurities we have in our water, what you see is we're already actually doing very well. The major impurities that we are higher on than they would like are things like arsenic, which is unfortunately in the shale that's in our aquifer. We can't do much except do things like ion exchange to filter it out. And then some of the impurities have to do with chlorine. When we chlorinate our water to make it safe to drink, some of those impurities are created, and there's no way to avoid that except by filtering at your tap. But in general, our water is already doing pretty well. Now, some people have bristled at the requirements of the aquifer protection regime, which has been put in place by the city and the county. And the good news about that is that our elected officials are responding to that. On September 3rd at 9:30 in the morning, unfortunately it is during the day, the county commissioners are going to have a hearing about some proposed changes to the aquifer protection regulations. And one of the things that they're really doing, which I think is a good thing, is they're looking at loosening the restrictions on small and individual homeowners and increasing the restrictions on commercial operations that might be big polluters. This makes some sense, and while I'm not an expert on the aquifer and I don't know all the details, this looks like a step in the right direction. I think it's not only going to improve the opportunities for creating more workforce housing and more affordable housing, but it will eliminate some of the threats of lawsuits, which would just tie our government up in knots defending against them. So overall, I'd say we're not doing badly on the aquifer. I think we really just need to pay attention to the science, and we also need to consider what citizens really need and what kinds of things they're actually doing that might affect the aquifer.
One of the conversations that I don't hear suggested resolutions to are specific ways by which we might create affordable housing solutions. What ideas do you have, Brett?
Yes. Well, that's another area where every single candidate has voiced an interest in affordable housing, but very few of them have talked about any practical solutions to it. And I have, and I want to talk about it more because I think it's really important. Building materials have gone through the roof. They've gone up something like 300%. If you want to go to Home Depot and buy a sheet of OSB, just chipboard, it's amazing how expensive that has gotten. All sorts of building material. It's very expensive to build new. But Laramie has sort of a secret treasure. We have a wonderful stock of older housing, which doesn't need to be rebuilt in order to be good housing, just renovated. And what we need to do, I think, if we want to create affordable housing now, the most economical thing to do, the only way to make it really affordable, is to renovate what we've got. Now, the city has actually thrown up some barriers to this. It has imposed a very strict contractor licensing regime, which actually has driven contractors out of the city or caused them to retire because they can't work in the city anymore. It hasn't grandfathered them, even if they've been working for 30 or 40 years. It's imposed restrictions on who can pull building permits. An owner can't pull a permit to do work on their own place. I tried that recently and I couldn't do it. They've put a number of obstacles in the way rather than facilitating affordable housing. I'd like to see council reconsider these things and adopt policies that let us rehabilitate our existing housing. And then when we build new, we need to eliminate the expensive red tape. Right now, there is a lot of expensive red tape. I've talked to a developer who bought a property and was considering redeveloping it and gave up because he just couldn't get through the city bureaucracy. We need to do something about that.
Commercial property, it was actually a Cheyenne contractor that we've invited. They've agreed to come on the Talk Shop and future shows, but they abandoned a U.S. Highway 287 adjacent property in the county annex, and it was just south of that business loop, Cherrywood business loop.
Yeah,
and that's their claim.
Mm-hmm.
So much getting in the way. Why would we pursue here when Cheyenne's so much easier and 49 miles away?
Yes. Now, one thing that has been done that's a positive thing, that our two state representatives from here in Laramie, Chris Rothfuss and Carly Provenza did, actually did help to improve the situation here in Laramie. They sponsored a bill on the state level which requires the city of Laramie to accept and basically to offer reciprocal licensing to contractors from Cheyenne. Believe it or not, before that bill passed, the city did not do that. But and that meant again that you could not get a plumber. You could not get a builder. There were so many things where people were backed up for years. Now you can go to Cheyenne, but it doesn't solve the whole problem, because those people have to travel, and they're going to charge us for that, and it's going to increase the cost of housing to bring them in. We still need to do things on the local level.
Laramie City Council race has Ward 1, Ward 2, and Ward 3. In Ward 2, I see you and Brett Glass and Melanie Vigil and Jim Freed.
Yes, actually, there are 6 of us total.
And there's 6 total.
Yes.
Now, I've seen publications that are in things that I've been invited to. Now, when I'm invited, I attend. I make every effort to attend. When I'm contacted for an interview on the Candidate Awareness Tour 2024, I cannot be legitimate and not welcome every candidate having filed timely by May 31st, 2024, regardless of the race, regardless of party, regardless of whether it's nonpartisan race. Now, City Council is a nonpartisan race, right?
City Council is a nonpartisan race. Now, the parties can't resist trying to weigh in, and we're already beginning to see this on their websites and in their, in the windows of their headquarters. They are beginning to put up candidate signs, and I'm actually a little bit uneasy about this, because I really feel that a City Council member needs to listen to everyone and needs to appeal to everyone. But hopefully most people can ignore the partisanship and look at what's good on the local level, which has nothing to do with the national issues that the parties are promoting. As for forums, I have done my best to attend every single one, and I think I have missed one out of all of them so far.
So 98% attendance.
Yeah, yes, and I will come to speak to anybody. Regardless of party, regardless of interest group. It's very important for a city council member to have the mindset that they're going to listen to everyone. If they don't, that is a red flag, and people should be very careful about voting for those candidates.
I want to tell you, I think it's a red flag when media, an opportunity is presented, complimentary opportunity to come in Studio 255 and share your perspectives, help people get to know you, the candidate. I can't begin to understand how in 2022 the Candidate Awareness Tour had select participation. We've expanded in 2024, but it's still not 100%. And I don't gather why people would not welcome and take me up on, be ringing and emailing like crazy to take that free opportunity in a representative model of government. How do you expect to be a good representative if you don't take fiscally minded, free opportunities to get your information out, to get in front of people? You can't possibly door knock and make as comprehensive an effort getting into people's homes as you can through social media and through radio, traditional radio and print. Those things are usually expensive. This is a public service that we do here at 93.5 FM.
Yes, Eric, it is wonderful that you do that. Many candidates are very worried about the media. They're very worried about slanted coverage of their views and their activities. I have been the victim of that, unfortunately. Some bloggers have gone and attacked me personally, for example. That's okay. It's freedom of the press, but it causes candidates to be wary of the media. One of the things that you do here, which I think is wonderful, is that you let the candidates speak their piece. And I think that that's the way it should be done. If someone is going to embarrass themselves, well, give them enough rope to hang themselves. But allow them to speak for themselves. I think that's the right way to do it.
Well, in every effort to let people know, in Ward 2, who are your fellow candidates running for public office, and obviously Brett Glass runs to the top of your list in candidates. There will be one selected from Ward 2, my understanding. Two?
There will be two.
Two. Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Everybody gets
Corrective
2
information.
votes in the primary
Okay.
and 2 votes in the general election. Because there are 6 of us, 4 of us will go on, the top 4.
Oh, okay.
And then the 2 who get the least votes will drop out. And then in the general election, you'll have 2 votes, and you'll get to pick 2 out of the 4.
Outstanding. So all of the folks that are in this race, all residents of Laramie for a long time. You have been the longest.
As far as I know, I have been. And I've been here for 32 years continuously, and then more before that, but I really settled in 1992.
I want to tell you and our listeners that you identify yourself as a business owner, local business owner, and you're also a property owner, manager as well. You have rentals, and you're a registered rental provider. And I saw, represented your perspectives on a Casper meeting of the state of Wyoming to reduce red tape.
Yes. Well, one of the things we need to do in order to keep housing affordable is make sure that we don't put red tape in the way of affordable housing. And I spoke at a Casper meeting, and I spoke at another meeting in Evanston. Essentially, what the bill that came before the Joint Interim Corporations Committee was a bill that would prohibit stringent regulations of rentals by municipalities like the city of Laramie. And the idea was that the state law would hopefully be comprehensive enough to cover issues of safety, business practices by the landlord, other things like that. And I thought that bill had a lot of merit. And the reason why is that cities can't actually do all of those things legally. The city can try to say that certain things aren't up to code. It might or might not do anything, but so can the state. The city can impose certain other requirements like licensing. But that's a problem because, as we've seen, we have a licensing regime in place now. Less than 50% of the landlords have actually registered, and the city has no way of tracking down who might decide to lease their basement or not. But the state really has control of the whole shebang, and you can go to the county courthouse, which is a half a block from City Hall, and do everything you need to as a tenant to enforce your rights. So the city ordinance is kind of redundant. It doesn't do very much. And again, it's not, most of the rentals aren't even registered. The complaints, they've gotten 21 complaints in 31 months about the condition of rentals, and they have resolved less than half of them. So they're also not very effective at doing this.
$142,000 what would you say, collected since the inception of this locally here in Laramie. Where did that $142,000 go?
Yeah, it was actually a little more. It turns out it was about $160,000.
Okay.
And it's unclear whether that was ever used. The city just seems to have pocketed it. It certainly doesn't take that much.
Well, I remember designation after presentation in a city council meeting where it was going to go in the general fund.
Yep. Basically, the city would pocket the money. It doesn't take that much to look into 21 complaints, and certainly not to resolve only half of them. So not much was done.
And ours assessments in terms of data to expand government with another position were presented at the same city council meeting. More than 500 hours have been collectively dedicated by mayor or not mayor, but city manager and what have you in terms of coordinating this rental registration program.
Yeah, but it really hasn't been effective. It hasn't benefited tenants. And this is the reason why I was an advocate of bringing it back to the state level, and the county is an instrumentality of the state, so that you would go to the county courthouse for all sorts of rental problems. But here is what happened. I went to the meeting in Cheyenne. I went to a second meeting in Evanston about it. And the state legislators considered, maybe we should do this, maybe they shouldn't. And ultimately they say, we favor local control. And so we are not going to intervene. If the city of Laramie wants to go ahead and harm its economy by imposing regulations that prevent affordable housing, and make it more difficult for you to build, make it more difficult for you to rent, we're going to let them learn from their mistakes. And so they voted down the bill. So now it is up to us, and it's very important that we make the right decisions when we vote in the election, because council members council candidates have different opinions on this. What we want to do is make sure that we do the right thing for everyone, for the tenants, for the landlords. By the way, I am a tenant as well as a landlord, so I care about this from both sides. And make sure that we do the right thing without bloating our government and without killing the possibilities for affordable housing and for workforce housing and other things that we need.
Now, I'm gonna reference a print piece that I picked up, and it's from the Albany County Tomorrow PAC. Mm-hmm. That political action committee called the Albany County Tomorrow PAC. Vote for council members in 2024 who will work hard on your behalf. Now, were you contacted by anyone from this particular political action committee?
I am unfamiliar with that PAC. I didn't know it existed until you mentioned it just now.
Here's my question. They go on to say, city councilors make a wide range of decisions that impact our daily lives. I agree.
Yes.
They help keep our drinking water clean for today and future generations, create solutions for affordable housing for our community's working families, and collaborate with local businesses to support good-paying jobs for a strong local economy. I'm right in sync with that.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that 100%. The devil is in the details. How do they plan to do it? Is there anything in the literature you receive that talks about what they actually plan to do, what policies they embrace?
Well, these candidates, and there are four, there are Ward 2 and Ward 1 candidates named with as choose these responsible leaders for Laramie City Council. I don't think it goes too far to say in Ward 1, this group supports Sharon Cumby, an incumbent, and it gives her Facebook contact. Will